I just stumbled on an XRP claim so bold that it stopped me in my tracks. An insider literally called XRP and its ledger humanity's best chance to reform our entire global financial system. It sounds pretty insane, right? Well, I had to find out if he's onto something or if he's just dreaming. Now, hi, welcome back to the channel. My name is Nick, and I want to take you on a little journey that I went through this week. Now, this whole thing, it started when I saw a passionate post on crypto Twitter, or X, or whatever we're going to call it these days, from a guy in the XRP community named Vincent Scott. Now, he basically said that XRP could reshape how money moves around the world. That's a pretty massive idea. I mean, we've all heard grand claims in crypto, and usually I just roll my eyes. But this one kept nagging at me a little bit. Now, what if XRP really is the key to a new financial system? If he's even half right, it could change a whole lot more than just our portfolio balances. So I had to dig in, followed the rabbit hole of evidence, and today I'm going to be sharing that story with you. So by the end of this video, you're going to see why some people, including myself now, actually believe that XRP might be much bigger than just another coin. And what huge obstacles actually might still stand in its way. Now, trust me here, this is one ride that you don't want to miss. All right, let's set the stage. Vincent Scott, for those who don't know, he's an active XRP community voice, posted that XRP and the XRP ledger are our best chance to reform the global financial system. Pretty bold statement, right? But he didn't just stop at that, did he, and vanish away. No, he backed it up with why he believes it. Now, he pointed out that Ripple, this is the company that's behind XRP, has been really busy getting its ducks in a row. Now, I'm talking about licensing efforts, acquisitions, partnerships, the whole shebang. And all the signs that Ripple is actually strategically positioning XRP for massive use in the real world. Basically, he's saying, look at what Ripple is doing behind the scenes. They're not just gathering all of these licenses and partners just for fun. They're gearing up for large-scale demand for XRP. And you know what? That clicked for me. Like, yeah, Ripple did spend years courting banks and regulators, buying companies, obtaining licenses in dozens of different jurisdictions. So it's not as flashy as some crypto startup going viral and doing some viral stunts or anything like that, but it's the kind of boring groundwork that you lay if you're planning for something big. Now, here is where it gets really interesting. Vincent explained that XRP's true value isn't just in some speculative price, it's actually in its utility, specifically the ability to move value effectively, right, like information, across the world. So let's think about it. Right, XRP has been used as a bridge currency for payments, or even as the gas that powers transactions on the network. It's built to zip money from point A to point B faster and cheaper than the old systems that we've been stuck with. Now, I remember the first time that I sent some XRP to a friend overseas. It was there in seconds, and the fee was a fraction of a penny. It's no waiting days for an international wire transfer. There's no crazy fees. It just felt like sending an email. That's the magic that is here, by moving money like we move data, instantly and at almost no cost. Now, Vincent's saying that is where XRP's real value actually lies. Not in being the next Bitcoin to just hodl, but in being the oil in the engine of a new financial machine. So, if XRP can really do that at scale, what could the world really look like? Now, Vincent painted a bit of a picture, and I went off on my own tangent imagining it. Right, he talks about reducing fraud, increasing competition among banks, speeding up settlements, even possibly eliminating the need for huge foreign currency reserves in each country. Now, the last part blew my mind, because today, big countries and banks, they hold trillions in other currencies like the US dollar just to facilitate trade. It's kind of like keeping a massive rainy day fund in someone else's money. Now, it ties up capital and, frankly, concentrates power. Now, if XRP or a system like it became a neutral bridge asset globally, then you might not need those nostro vostro accounts with billions just sitting idle, right? Smaller countries wouldn't need to actually stockpile dollars or euros. Transactions could just flow through XRP. Money could become more efficient, kind of how the internet made information exchange efficient. Fewer middlemen skimming fees, less opportunities for certain kinds of fraud because transactions settle so fast and transparently. And even smaller financial players could compete since they wouldn't be bogged down by the slow, expensive transfers. It's a pretty utopian vision, maybe a little too utopian. And here is the catch. Not everyone would be thrilled about this future. Vincent straight up acknowledges that all of this innovation faces heavy resistance because a decentralized payment and reserve system ruins the existing power structure. Now let that sink in. Who holds power in the current systems? Well, it's big banks, central banks, governments of major economies. If something like XRP underpins global finance, suddenly we don't need SWIFT in the same way. We might not need the dollar to be the intermediary for every trade. Banks can't take a hefty cut on every cross-border transaction, and small nations might not be as beholden to the big ones. Right? The incumbents, whether it's large banks or even governments that enjoy the status quo, they're not going to just roll over. Change is going to be hard, especially for people's power and, let's be real, profit when it is at stake. I mean, imagine telling a central banker, hey, we might not need your currency as the world's reserve anymore. We have XRP. Well, the conversation's not going to go very well, at least at the country club. Now, at this point, you're probably thinking this sounds a little like a financial revolution. And you're right, it is. Right, part of me is getting hyped just thinking about it and talking about it out loud. But hold on, before we quit our day jobs, and I do have to say this. This might just shock you, but I'm not a financial advisor and nothing in this video is financial advice. Cryptocurrencies are highly volatile and you could lose all of the money that you invest. You should always do your own research and consult a qualified professional. After all, your investments are entirely your responsibility, and you should know that nothing is ever guaranteed when it comes to investing. Neither I, this channel, nor YouTube are liable for any losses, and this video is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Alright, disclaimer is done, and seriously, that's not just kind of a boilerplate. Right, we are talking big picture possibilities here, not guarantees. So let's get back to the story, because here comes that huge obstacle that I hinted at earlier. We've got technology that works. We've got a company, that's Ripple, pushing for the adoption, and even a community believing in the vision. But none of that really matters if the rules of the game don't change. Vincent put it bluntly. Nothing significant will ever happen until regulatory laws are fully in effect. In other words, laws are the final gate that we all have to walk through. And right now, that gate is only really half open at best. This is something that I think a lot of us in crypto underestimate. Right? We've got excited about a new partnership or a cool pilot program using XRP, and we just assume, yes, mass adoption is around the corner. But if the legal framework isn't there, big players, the banks, the payment providers, the governments, they are handcuffed. They're not going to bet the farm on something that regulators have not blessed. Now, Vincent reminded everyone of that reality. He even pointed to some hopeful signs, like the United States Congressman French Hill saying that Congress, could pass the Clarity Act by the end of the year if the Senate moves on it. Now, the Clarity Act, for context here, is a proposed law in the United States aimed at finally defining what crypto assets are and how they can be used. And if that, or any clear regulatory framework passes, it is a game changer. It could and would basically give the green light for traditional institutions, to use crypto assets like XRP without fear of getting into trouble. And not just in the United States, but other countries are watching each other too. Europe's already ahead with their regulations, and places like Latin America are innovating too. The United States doesn't want to be left behind, so there's pressure to act. Now, Vincent's points is this really: until those laws are in place, all of the tech, all of the partnerships, it won't reach their full potential. It's kind of like we have a race car ready to go, but we're stuck at a red light. He urges the community, and really kind of hit home for me, to remain pretty patient, avoid the hype train, and keep learning about the bigger picture of what is happening. Basically, don't just sit there staring at the price chart expecting a miracle tomorrow. Instead, use this time to understand why this technology matters, how it could change things, and educate other people, right? He literally said that he's going to stand with the community until we all walk through the gate together, meaning until the end, or at least until the end, but until the day that regulatory clarity really comes and that this vision can actually move forward. Now, I don't know about you, but I do find that a little comforting. It's kind of like we're all waiting for the same thing and we're all in it together. Now, if you're an XRP holder or just following Ripple, then you know the feeling. Sometimes it's like, nothing is happening, the price is flat. Did we bet on the wrong horse? But then you realize that all of these slow, boring developments, the laws, the licenses, the standards, are actually what sets the stage for the real action. It's a marathon here, it's not a sprint. Now, after reading Vincent's insights, I dove into the replies and the community chatter around it, because I wanted to gauge if others were on the same page, or whether they were calling him crazy. And this part was almost as enlightening as the original post. So, one community member, Nanad, chimed in here and said, basically, look, Ripple is not your average crypto company. It's got serious infrastructure, it's making regulatory progress, and it has a global reach. In fact, he called Ripple the only serious financial company in crypto. Now that stood out. Now, a lot of crypto projects pride themselves on being rebellious or decentralized to the max, but sometimes at the cost of ignoring regulators or traditional business practices. Ripple, love it or hate it, took a more Wall Street approach from the very beginning, working with banks and regulators, sometimes to the frustration of the pure decentralization crowd. Now, this guy is basically saying that the strategy makes Ripple uniquely positioned. They're not playing the long game with the big boys, or actually I should say they are playing the long game with the big boys. And Vincent replied, that's correct, right, to that particular comment. So he clearly does agree, and I do too. I mean, who else in crypto has sat down with Bank of America or the IMF and actually gotten them to listen? It's very few. So that was like a group of high five on Ripple's approach here. Then came another interesting perspective from a user called Son of Richard. These usernames, I swear, right? They are hilarious. Anyway, he argued that Ripple's new product, Ripple Prime, could actually boost XRP even before new laws kick on in, because it's already compliant with existing rules. Now, Ripple Prime, for those that don't know, at least from what I gathered too, this is a product for institutions, maybe some kind of premium liquidity or trading service for big players. The idea is that if it's compliant enough, then maybe big companies or banks could start using XRP through Ripple Prime right now, not waiting for new legislation. And that comment got me a little excited, like, oh man, could there be a shortcut right here? I mean, could XRP's demand surge sooner rather than later, or maybe it's a lot sooner than we all think, thanks to a clever little product launch? But Vincent shut that down with a quick reality check. He responded with, no, needs law. Right, in other words, no, you still got to wait for the legal green light. That was rather telling. Right? It shows even with fancy new products on the deck, right, the people in the know, or at least Vincent, believes nothing major happens without clear regulations. So again, patience. Now, of course, it wouldn't be crypto Twitter without a bit of drama, right? Now, another user, Tommy Raz, came in hot with criticism of Ripple's leadership, questioning CEO Brad Garninghouse, co-founder Chris Larsen, and CTO David Schwartz. Basically, He was casting doubt. Are these guys doing enough, right? Are they the right people to deliver on these big promises? Maybe he was implying that they're just all talk, or that they've gotten too cozy and aren't pushing hard enough. It's a sentiment that I've been around, right? People are frustrated here, and they're frustrated that XRP hasn't mooned already and are looking for someone to blame. Now, Vincent, however, wasn't having any of that. He defended Ripple's leadership, right? He said that they're dedicated to the mission and making the right moves behind the scenes. Now, he explained that Brad Garlinghouse, as CEO, has to be publicly optimistic. That is his job, right? Vincent wrote that. And it's true. If you kind of watch Brad in interviews, he's always upbeat, about the future. And that's what a CEO does, right? They rarely kind of do the opposite. They just rally the confidence. Then Vincent touched on David Schwartz, the CTO, saying people read too much into what David posts online. So if you do follow David, his handle is 𝗕𝗘𝗪𝗔𝗥𝗘, you know that he's got a quirky sense of humor and sometimes tweets random or trollish comments that sends the community into sleuth mode. Is this a hint? Is this a code? Vincent's like, guys, David is a computer nerd with a Twitter account. Not everything is a grand plan. Just chill out. And I had to laugh at that because, well, we've all been guilty of overanalyzing David Schwartz's tweets, a day or two in, right? Anyway, Vincent basically said, Brad, Chris, and David, they're doing what they're supposed to do. And when new laws finally click into place, and then we'll see the proof that is in the pudding. So after the laws, we'll see the proof is what he wrote, which to me sounds like judge them by the results once the constraints are lifted. And you know what? That's fair enough. By the end of all of this, I sat back and I realized that I had just gotten a crash course in both the promise and the reality check of XRP. Because on one hand, you have this powerful technology and a company methodically preparing it for world-scale use. But on the other hand, you have this slow grind of legal approval and an entrenched system that doesn't want to change, right? It's kind of like a giant chess match here, and we're waiting for that one move that puts the king into checkmate. Now, in this case, the king is the old financial guard. Vincent Scott's thread and the ensuing discussion, of course, reframed how I see my own XRP investment and involvement. It reminded me why I got interested in XRP to begin with, not just because I hoped that it would go up in value, but because the technology had a real shot at solving a $1 trillion problem, how money moves. And it also reminded me why at least reminded me, I should say, to stay grounded here, because big changes, they do not happen overnight, and certainly not just because we all want them to. They happen when all the pieces line up, the tech, the adoption, and the regulation. So here is my takeaway, and maybe a takeaway for you guys too. XRP might truly have the potential to be more than just another crypto. It could be an infrastructure layer for the global economy if things play on out right. We're talking about possibly reducing friction in finance the way that the internet reduced friction for communication. That's huge. But until the day comes when regulators give it the thumbs up and the current power brokers buy on in, we won't see that full potential reflected in the price or the adoption. And that is okay. It means that our job as a community is to stay informed, to stay patient, and to be ready. Vincent encouraged everyone to study and to share the knowledge, and I love that ethos. In fact, that's a big reason why I even run this channel in the first place, and why we have our free educational Discord server. The link for that is in the description. And if you're not in there yet, then you should probably hop on in. It is a bunch of us just learning from each other, discussing the latest developments, asking the questions, and there are no stupid questions, by the way, and just helping each other understand this wild crypto space. It's a hype-free zone because that's just like Vincent said, knowledge and community are how we get through the long waits. So yeah, come and join us there if you want to geek out on all of this stuff in real time. Now, speaking of being ready and patient, let's get practical for a second. One thing that I've learned over the years, and often the hard way, is that you need to have a plan A, B, C when it comes to crypto exchanges and access to your funds. Now, if XRP or crypto in general takes off, then you don't want to be the person scrambling to set up an exchange account at the last minute or getting stuck because one exchange halted their withdrawals. So trust me here, exchanges can go down or get overloaded right when you need them the most. It's Murphy's Law, right? So what I do is I keep accounts on multiple exchanges that I've KYC'd and tested so that I know that they all work when I need them the most. Now I've got my main go-tos, of course, and a few backup ones. For example, I use Binance, Coinbase, Kraken, BitGet, Bluefin, and LBank, and a few others regularly too. And yes, those are affiliate links on my website, by the way, which is linked down below, and using them does support the channel here, so thank you in advance. And of course, it doesn't cost you anything extra. The point is this: I want to be able to move to an exchange that if, one exchange has an outage or has a problem, right? One platform suddenly has a better price or maybe a better feature. Now, this strategy has saved my bacon before, like when one exchange froze up during the Bitcoin surge, right? I just hopped over to another one to execute my trade. So consider setting up at least 2 or 3 reliable exchanges now, rather than later. Even if you favor one over the other, having alternatives is just smart. All right, so to wrap this up, one XRP community member's bold claim ended up taking me on a bit of a deep dive into why I fell into this crypto space in the first place, right? This promise of XRP, right, or the promise that XRP is going to be huge, maybe even world-changing huge, but it is a promise that's still waiting on a few final pieces to click into place. So in the meantime, right, we are just left here twiddling our thumbs, right? But we need to also be thinking about learning, being prepared, and staying united as a community. So if you've got value out of this journey and you're as excited as I am to see how it all plays out, then you can do me a favor by hitting that like button and the subscribe button and join our little adventure here. I'm going to keep digging for stories just like this, following the breadcrumbs and sharing what I find. And I'd love you all to be along for the ride. Who knows? Maybe in a few months from now, we'll be making a video titled "We Finally Walked Through That Gate." But until then, we just have to stay informed, stay safe, and as always, thank you for watching. Let me walk you through that gate together, at least with me, when the time comes. I'll see you all in the next one.